time. It's our time, my friends. Time for millions of maturepreneurs, 55 plus, who are hashtag not done by a long shot, to revolutionize how we lead, do business, and innovate our world. I'm your host, Jeanette Anderson, and welcome to my conversations with fascinating people who would rather inspire than retire. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Maturepreneur Podcast. I'm your hostess, Jeanette Anderson, and today I'm here with the fabulous Deena Kordt. Did I pronounce the last name right? Kordt?
You sure did.
Good. From nearby Red Deer, Alberta. I'm currently in Calgary. So for those of you who are wondering, that's about an hour and a half drive, give or take, depending on how you drive. And we were just talking about how summer is almost over, even though it's midsummer. You can start to see some of the leaves turning already here in Alberta, which is just not okay. Not okay. So welcome, Deena. I'm really happy to have you here.
Thank you, Jeanette. I've been really excited to join you today and just looking forward to what we will discuss. And it's exciting. Whatever is happening in our lives, I've been always known as someone who finds a silver lining. So I love having those kind of discussions. And that seems to be the tone of a lot of the work that you do.
Yes, absolutely. How do we find the options and opportunities where other people may only see challenges and limitations? Like, yep, nope, how to be unstoppable in the world. So today we're going to be talking about instincts and opportunities. Speaking of opportunities, trusting your gut for success. So a lot of you that are listening to this may be in transition, and Deena happens to be the queen of transition and has a couple of magazines and a podcast dedicated to that. We're going to talk about that. But really, a lot of the conversations we have are how to master the inner and outer game of business as you transition into creating a business or a social enterprise or a nonprofit or whatever is next for you in the world. And as much as we need to, master marketing and sales and so forth, we predominantly need to master the 4 inches between our ears, because our issues, our beliefs, our limiting beliefs become the businesses or the enterprises' beliefs and limitations. So I'm really excited to talk about how to overcome that, how to trust your gut, and how to tune into that so that you can start making some wise decisions. So happy you're here.
Thank you.
As you know, folks, I'll read you the official bio. Then we're going to get the juicy tidbits from behind the scene, the non-official stuff. And we'll launch into this topic and how to really tap into that knowing. So, podcaster, publisher, and author, Deena Kordt draws from her personal journey to passionately empower others. Her message of hope assures individuals that they're not alone in their struggles. Deena's expertise is in connecting people. As owner and publisher of Divorce Magazine Canada and Life Changes Magazine and host of her Life Changes channel podcast, she fosters collaborations to support those navigating life's changes. So I love that. There's a lot of different ways of and platforms for reaching people and getting your message to them and inspiring them. So we'll talk about that, about launching podcasts and magazines and all of that, oh my. But tell me a bit more about you. What would people not guess about you from looking at you, Deena? What would surprise people?
Well, there's a few things that I have done that they may be surprised about.
Okay.
Some people may already guess. I come from a nursing background,
Okay.
so some people might not know that. And I find that when people learn of that, they're quite excited because I think nursing is something that's respected as far as it takes a special heart to do that, or a different mindset. And I've played the violin. I've traveled Europe. I've first jobs I ever had were babysitting and breaking horses.
Oh,
Now,
okay.
breaking horses, for those of you who aren't in that world, it's just another word for training them. But I found that there was a lot of parallels between babysitting and breaking horses. So those were my first jobs. Those are the first things I made money at, and in Alberta, and I grew up in Saskatchewan, down on the Montana border. So that's not an uncommon thing you might guess about somebody. I've ridden motorbike. I don't know, maybe the tattoos give that away. Anybody who's watching on a video, I've got a few. And yeah, I'm a mom, I'm a grandma. A lot of people go, "What?" But
Exactly. My mouth just
um,
popped open. You're
yeah, I am a grandma. I have two amazing little grandsons, 6.5 and 3 at this point. So
wow. Okay, so you
it's
started very young.
yeah, I tell people I started at 12, and then some people don't get that I'm joking. And I'm like, no, it wasn't. I was like
You really-
21 when no, 24 when I had my first one, 21 when I got married. So really young, really
Yeah,
young.
yeah. Well, and how does being a grandma suit you this early in life?
I love it. Actually, my greatest joy, my highest calling is the way I put it, was being a parent. And
Mm,
so being a grandparent, and I'm also a bonus mom of a couple amazing teenage daughters. I'm just, I've got all the ages.
oh,
So
that's cool.
it's perfect because it really blesses my life.
I love that. I love the phrase bonus mom versus stepmom, which I'm assuming is kind of what you're
Yes.
referring to. I think that that's much, you know, a much nicer way of thinking of it and putting it. So let's talk a little bit about your work. How long have you been in business?
Well, that's tricky to answer because I've dabbled in a few things. 6 years ago,
Mhm.
the work I was in was something I'd been in for a few years, back kind of in the medical field, and that department was dissolved. So I had to get creative. What skills do I have? And I tried a few things. Social media management, direct sales jewelry, a baking company. And what happened is this little thing that we had a pause in person to person
Mhm.
uh, opportunities. So had to learn how to be creative that way and just step away from that and think, what else is there? And I was really fortunate to be part of a group that looked for how they could support you in doing what they felt they could see you had strengths in. And it
Mm,
was suggested, you're a writer.
mm,
So have you considered starting a blog and just get brave and put that out there? So I built my own website, built a blog. It's still going, deenakordt.com. And I took from that and started publishing some books. Now I didn't start with my own, I had my own content, but it took me a few other books that I published before I put those thoughts
mm.
into print more than just on a website. So then along came a lovely lady, Dorothy Briggs, who has started Womanition magazine and also had started Life or Divorce Magazine Canada.
Ah,
And so when I met her, I said, "Hey, I've got all these skills with websites and social media and that type of thing. How can I help you out with this?" And
right.
by the end of the conversation, I had bought the magazine, and she's like, "Yeah, run with it. It's got so much potential. Do what you want with it." She was super busy with Womanition and had this creation she'd been running for 10 or 11 years. So I jumped into that just over a year and a half ago. So that's when the rubber hit the road, felt like that was more of my own entrepreneurial, like an actual business. And
Okay.
yeah, that's where it got
Well,
started.
there's a lot of things in there that I just kind of want to unpack for a minute. And we're going to get to your why or your purpose behind a lot of this journey that you've been on. But what I heard you say is you got downsized in your career, in your business or your work as a nurse, and then you did what true entrepreneurs at heart do. You took an assessment of what are my skills, what are my things I love to do, what are some possibilities, and then you tried a bunch of things to see what kind of fit, what would work, what didn't work for you, which is not always an easy journey. What was the hardest part of making that leap from being an employee to these various different attempts? What was the hardest part of that for you?
I think the hardest part was trusting myself. I've always been curious. a lifelong learner. And, I'll just follow my instincts. And that's going to be one of my big pieces of advice for people is just do it.
Mhm. Yeah.
Uh, so I will do that. But then I think, okay, I can easily create and get started and initiate. I'm full of ideas.
Mhm.
Is this something I can trust myself to feel like that was the best move? Should I keep going down this road? Do I keep going, or am I going to stop and then I was maybe 3 feet from gold? That
Mhm.
the story of the miner. So I think trusting myself to just stick with it as long as I feel there's still a potential there.
Mm. And so when you were not trusting yourself, how did that manifest for you? How did that look on a day-to-day basis? What were the feelings? What were your
Mm,
behaviors when you weren't
yeah.
trusting yourself? Because
It,
sometimes people have that experience, but they haven't identified that that's the core thing that's going on.
I came from a background of over 30 years in an abusive situation. So trusting myself had a very elemental feel. It was very strong because I had made that decision to get into that, to stay in that for that long. And so then how do I trust my decisions when that's an example of one of them?
Mhm.
So when I was recognizing that I was in that, the feeling was not very comfortable. It
Mhm.
was it was self-deprecating. You're questioning everything in your life.
Mhm.
Which things are a good fit? Which should I stick with? What what feels good? And what I eventually came to, and I believe I'm quoting Martha Beck with this roughly, is that when you're struggling to make a decision, choose what feels like freedom.
Mm.
And so another way of thinking of that is what lights me up? What is something that would lead me, if I kept at this, would lead me to a life I would love, or to something that does feel right. And that can change over time. And
Mhm.
I really like to emphasize that for people, that maybe that did feel really good at one time in your life. Or maybe you've lost touch with some things that felt good because you've been so focused on taking care of others' needs first, and you
Mhm.
just don't have the energy or the inspiration at the end of that to to take your curiosity down a path that you would find intriguing, and you think, well, maybe there's something at the end of this. So it,
Right.
it felt very low. It felt like you were out of a creative flow, and you're just in a funk.
Mhm. Well, I'm really happy you brought this up because I think it's a much more pervasive situation for older people than people would guess. Certainly, there's a lot of depression and mental health issues and isolation and loneliness, but we've also lived a lot of life. And if you've gotten through 50 or 60 years or more, you can't not have had issues or regrets or things that didn't work or whatever you want to call learning experiences, whatever you call them. But that can really take a toll on our ability to trust our own knowing and our own wisdom and our own decision making, like you said. How did you Was forgiving yourself part of your healing process to be able to regain your trust? Or what did you need to do to be able and willing to trust yourself again? Because going from that to, oh my God, I'm going to make a leap and become an entrepreneur is a really big chasm. So how did you heal that?
I think what worked the most for me was a strong inner positive, optimistic spirit that has kept me sane, I like to say, for all of these years. And, I was raised with a very strict religious background, which I have left, but I still strongly believe that, you hear evidence of even tribes that are deep in the jungle have never heard of any type of a religious type of we have an innate sense of a higher power, whether we want to call it our higher self, God, universe, spirit, whatever. That connection,
Mm,
just thinking, okay, that kept hope during my darkest days.
Mhm.
Something else is a higher power over this person who's using, coercive control, whatever it was, to control me. I
Mhm.
know there's still a higher power above that, and that is a positive power that wants the best for me. So
Mhm.
for me to get back into that, I left the traditional religious type of connection to that power, but this felt truer. This felt more authentic to me. And as I listened to that, my intuition became stronger. I forgave myself also by saying, those were lessons. So that silver lining kept coming up and
Mhm.
trying to notice the negatives that I was letting come in and feed me these messages that weren't healthy and weren't helpful. And I still get that. I haven't got that perfected, but I'm a little quicker to recognize it now
Yeah.
and go, wait a minute, you know, is that a bully talking in my head, or could we maybe come to a different agreement on on what that is and how that maybe was a benefit? And
Yeah.
so I'll still go through these slumps and I have to pause and think, well, what was it that triggered that? Where
Mhm.
is that feeling coming from? And is it true? Is it
Mm.
really true?
Yeah. Yes. I love that. And so it sounds like you know of Byron Katie's The
Yeah.
Work. Yeah, as I recognize those phrases. If you, ladies and gentlemen listening, if you haven't heard of this before, Byron Katie, who is a lady, wrote something called The Work. You Google it and find it on YouTube, and there's lots of examples. It's basically a personal growth workshop on one page, and it allows you to get some objectivity about whatever the belief or the thought is, work it through to a reframe, she calls it a turnaround, that will help you tell a better story, essentially. I basically say that all of our life, and really all coaches are people who are paid to love you, paid to help you tell better stories, and paid to
Yeah.
hold space for you to step into because you've just temporarily forgotten who you really are. And why I love this work is it's awesome to get paid for those things. And I love
Yes.
doing that and being that space. And so it sounds like you did a lot of personal growth work that you really, I love the negotiation you had with yourself about, wait a minute, can we come at that a different way? And that you really held yourself with some gentleness and compassion for your humanity, which I think is super critical to getting through anything, any transition, and growing and just being human beings. Because like we have a lot of voices in our head that aren't necessarily kind or helpful, or at least many people do. So I'm assuming that you're divorced, and that was part of your inspiration for wanting to take on the divorce magazine. Is that true?
Yes.
And how long ago was that? How long ago did you get divorced?
That would be about 7 years.
Okay. So part of the work that you do, tell me a little bit about that because you support people with transitions. So how do you do that? What's your purpose on the planet and how does that manifest right now in terms of the work you're doing?
So I have recently dug deeper to try and understand what my why is so that I can communicate that to others because I really do want to attract people who align with that why. And when I dug in deeper, I noticed that wanting to help those who are trying so hard to be invisible or on the outskirts or be on the outside and my mom said that I would do that as a child. I was drawn to those who were withdrawn, who were left out or struggling in some way to feel like they belonged. And my work now is to help people through struggles and challenges that they have where they feel alone.
Mm,
And what is very surprising is the high rate we have, for example, of divorce
mhm,
and the epidemic we're facing around domestic violence as well, but divorce itself, even though the rate is so high, people feel alone going through it,
mm,
especially in the contemplation stages, because don't know where to turn for the answers. How can they get that information discreetly? How can they
Mhm.
be informed to and empowered to make a decision that they feel they can live with? How can they help their children through it? There's so much around this, and they feel alone. They don't know where to turn. They don't know how to find the answers. They just want it over with. They're in a panic. It's like, no, let's just find the harshest lawyer and just make it happen. And we're going to be done with it. I want out. And
Mhm.
so I am really drawn to help people find the answers and to connect, as well as to connect the experts as referral partners, because that's what I'm hearing from my clients is of a huge value to them right now is finding those referral partners because they don't necessarily have the expertise they're not going to have the expertise in all areas, from finance to mediation, to the legal aspect, to real estate, to whatever, all of that.
Mhm.
So to be able to meet and network with referral partners that can support their clients through other areas is a great benefit too. So that's why it's important to me that I attract the people who align because they're going to be working with each other as well as I want to feel confident referring or sending someone to a service provider, a professional that is going to take care of them with that mindset.
Right. Which super important and really good for you to be that hub and that source of connections. I read in Forbes magazine a long time ago a statistic that employees who are great connectors tend to make $60,000 a year more than people who are not good connectors. Now, I don't know what the equivalency is for those of us who are not employees, but let's just say being a good connector does help create opportunities and is very valuable, not only just in terms of the intrinsic reward of being able to support people in a variety of ways without having to be everything for everyone, but also just monetarily, it can be of big benefit as well. So tell me a little bit more about your business. Do you coach? Do you do programs? I know you've got your media stuff. So tell me about your business. What's a day in the life of your business look like?
Oh, well, it depends. Some days run from about 7 in the morning till 2 in the morning that same day. Like it's just because I'm a connector, but I'm a creator too. If you couldn't tell from some of the earlier stuff that I've done, the books that I've written and the businesses I've tried. And so creating, I can get right into that and hours go by and I don't even notice. So what I've taken from the original annual free publication, a free print publication magazine, was I've turned it into a quarterly digital magazine.
Okay.
And I'll get into the rationale in just a bit. And I added a second magazine called Life Changes. So there was Divorce Magazine Canada.
Mhm.
And then I've added Life Changes Magazine. Much of the content in the original magazine I love the vibe that Dorothy had created. It was advertorial, it was empowering information, and it wasn't just in your face advertising. So it's very important that people opening this get information and resources that can help support them. A lot of that is relevant even without a divorce. And I
Mhm.
didn't want people to miss it thinking, oh, this is just for people experiencing divorce. Much of it is even without or post divorce. And you're facing a lot of changes in your life. And they can be positive or negative, expected or unexpected, but you still need some support through most of them. And
Mhm.
that is my purpose in offering that. We had no way of knowing where I published 22,000 copies of the magazine. It went somewhere, but I don't know who's reading it, how to get that feedback and how to help them more and how to reach even more people. I also was bumping into a negative stigma. Surprise, surprise.
Mm.
I'd offer a copy of the magazine to someone and they go, "Oh, is it online?" They didn't want to have one in their hands that someone may see that they're reading a divorce magazine, even if it was related to their business. The other thing I would into is businesses displaying it in their waiting rooms or their lobbies or on a stand. They'd be like, "It's kind of a downer topic." And I'm like, probably half the people walking through your doors are looking for this information. But if they aren't comfortable displaying it and people aren't comfortable picking it up, I'm not serving them as well as I could be. So
Right.
by being online, they can access it more easily, far greater reach. And I would be willing to guess that probably about 20% of my audience are people looking for information to support someone they care about.
Mm,
So how can they get this, share it discreetly
mm,
and easily? Just here's a link, whatever. That is now very easy to do. We also have some stats around readership. What I also have had on my wish list for years was to start a podcast. And this just clicked into place. And I was like, this is it. This is the first podcast I'm going to start. I also have ideas for other ones and just recently started a new talk show. But the podcast connects creator brain. Uh, the podcast connects people with the experts. The majority, it's pretty much all entirely interviews that are just like what we're doing today, conversation. And it lets people know who's out there, gives them a chance to meet them and hear what they have to say, and offers them some support and information.
mhm.
So there's that. There's online support groups every 2 weeks for people to come in and meet those experts and hear them talk about a certain topic. And there's a blog and social media I've expanded. The website has tons of information as well. And then the coaching, I did start doing some coaching, and that is kind of came from the blog and the books that I had published around, manifesting mindset and women's empowerment. But the coaching I now do as a professional speaker from the stage. So it's still there, but I do speak on a variety of topics, and that's more. I like to say I coach from the stage. So that's some of the things I'm working on.
Interesting. Okay. Now, I didn't get your agreement on this before we started, but I'd love to dive a little deeper into the monetization because a lot of people, and here's why, Deena, is a lot of people think, ooh, a magazine, ooh, a podcast, that sounds really fun and creative, and it is. It's also a shit ton of work and
Yeah,
money and is not easily monetizable. People think that they're going to get rich from a podcast or maybe a magazine or whatever, or even a book. And
yeah,
you're not. Like the
no,
vast majority of people do not. There is a small minority of the millions and millions of podcasts that actually make money. And even that, even there's only a very small majority of or minority of them that make enough income for it to be their living as opposed to just an additional source of revenue. Um, so talk about the monetization of your business, if you will, just whatever you were willing to share about what were some of the challenges, what's been easy to monetize, what's been a challenge. What would you tell people about starting a magazine or a podcast if they're thinking of that as, or even a book, as their source of income? Because I really want people to get the truth about these things.
yeah. Well, one of the big incentives as well, just as important as all the other rationale for going digital, was the very high cost of print and the declining trend. I don't believe it'll ever go away, but there is a declining trend in readership, in people using print.
Mhm.
Like we're talking hardcover, a paper, a magazine in your hands when we're talking about print.
And
So
not only the printing, but the distribution. So
distribution, yes.
getting racks to put them in, to get them in locations and taking all the time to arrange all that distribution, super time consuming and expensive too. So digital is brilliant. So how do you monetize it? Is it mostly through ad sales?
Yes. So the contributors to the magazine pay for space in the magazine so that they can be seen and get the word out there that this is their expertise and this is how to get a hold of them. What I was excited about too is by offering quarterly magazines, and I also added 8 newsletters in the months there isn't a magazine. So every single month there's a new publication. That way I just quadrupled the space that they had where they could put out more articles, more content, more information to empower people. And they're going to have better prepared clients that show up to their door when they're ready for their help. So it is a lot of work, but we can also share more current content this way too. The space that is monetized. Then I have sponsors that can advertise and have. I've had sponsors advertise on the podcast in the support groups as well. And I have a different variety of packages that people can use to for different amounts of space they would like in the publications. And what I keep bumping up against is me wanting to give, give, give.
Mhm.
And this is a passion project, but that's not sustainable that way. I'm not going to help people if I give to the point where I can't do it anymore and then it just disappears altogether. So that isn't.
Wait, pause. Say that again.
Yeah.
It's so important. Say exactly what you said.
um, it's not sustainable to keep giving, 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 because if I do that till I can't give anymore, this will disappear. This
Yeah.
goes away. This isn't available anymore. And then who am I helping?
There are so many people, especially women, who get into business or even have been in business for a long time who really struggle with that. They want to give, and we're taught, we're
Mm.
enculturated, whatever that word is.
I
Um,
like that word.
I don't know if it's a word, but it is now. To
We
really,
both vote.
yeah, to really focus on giving. And we have all sorts of stuff around. It's not okay to ask to be valued for what we give, and it's not okay to be paid well for what we do, or even paid in some cases. I
Hmm.
think that's so important to, really call out that we can't be of service unless we sell, because it's not sustainable. So was that hard for you as part of your transition into entrepreneurship? Was that something you had to overcome, or was that an easy thing for you?
It was super hard and I'm still struggling with it. And a lot of that comes back to that nasty little voice of imposter syndrome, right? Like, who are you to ask for money for doing something that anybody could do? And I
Yeah,
think we often discount our skills and unique abilities and go, well, anybody could do this.
yeah.
But I'm doing it. So why does that mean I'm going to charge people? And, I've struggled too. So the online support groups were free and everything to like B2C, like out to the clients, to the audience is free. And I realized, well, I was challenged by a business mentor that said, do you feel that your audience can't afford it?
Hmm.
And I said, well, yes, there's some cases where they can't, but I don't want to restrict any access to this information by having a dollar amount tied to it. So the magazines are free. They aren't behind any paywall right now. The newsletters are an opt-in. Again, there's no cost for people. And the support groups, in order to reconcile that I'm still offering people a chance to get into these and meet these experts for no cost, is to have early bird tickets that are free. And once those are gone, you're going to have to pay,
Hmm.
uh, you know, to attend. And and I mean, because it's costing me money to
I
do
was
all of
saying,
this
costing you.
and
Oh,
advertising. And so then I went, okay, well, it's a $20 value, but now I recently added, there's also now here's a 50% discount code with an opt-in, right? So for $10, and there's still some free tickets if they're early birds. So there's ways to trick your mind or trick yourself. At some point, yes, I think the magazines, because I just changed that model. The first digital came out in March, and then June was summer. We have September 1st coming out. I am exploring the option of a subscription base once I have that established. And I feel like it's established. I mean, there's already over 14,000 online audience,
member.
that people are showing up. So got to figure out when I can start making this a subscription.
Well, and if I might offer a couple of observations, not just for you, but for other people, because I've heard this from a lot of people, a lot of clients over the years, is it probably wouldn't occur to you to think that all of your university education should be 100% free, because you're going there to learn a skill and to get some value and to be able to have that help you in your life down the road. Now, there are some countries where it is 100% free, but not
Hmm.
many. Right. And yet we think that by providing education and content and things that will help them down the road, that it should be free, but we would be willing to pay for that, kind of education ourselves. So there's a misalignment there. And the other thing I would highly recommend is you could always keep the magazine free or have costs covered by the contributor payments, but charge for the support groups where there is a lot more of your time, a lot more of your energy, a lot more of your expertise that goes into it. Bundle them together, something like that. But people value what they pay for. The other challenge with this, and I just heard it phrased a different way that I thought was quite brilliant. I was listening to an ebook, and I can't remember the exact quote, but it's basically a variation on if they're not invested, they're not invested in the results. And so even though these people are going through something very difficult, they won't take action if they're not actually invested in change. And investing in the solution often helps us be invested in changing the outcome. So, yeah, all of you who are listening, this is such a really thank you for being so honest about the real struggle of this. Because it is where a lot of entrepreneurs really have a hard time is
Mhm.
reconciling. This is so close to my heart. And, like you said, anybody can do it. No, they can't. That's why there are, you know, several thousand divorce magazines on the market. No, they can't. And or they don't, because it's not, they might be able to, but they haven't done it. You have. So congratulations on actually doing it, because that's what separates the people from the potentials to the actuals is you do it, you take action, and you continue to take action, and you continue to pour yourself into these endeavors. So what is Life Changes magazine then? What's that about?
Life Changes magazine is anything to do with any type of life change. It might be retirement, it might be combining homes, or it might be career changes, you know, um, graduation, new family.
Mm,
I had this, I don't have it near me, but I have this huge list of different life changes that we can experience. There's aging, there's grief, there's loss,
mhm,
your education, which also can link to career or entrepreneurship, and uh, maybe dating, relationship stuff, self growth and development, and a lot of changes that we will go through in a lifetime. I want to touch just briefly back on the podcasts and books and, like the monetizing stuff. A lot of those have value in giving you credibility. You might not see it as a monetary
yeah,
value. You've written books
yeah,
that offer some credibility,
yes,
and you have a podcast. And I've heard several times that if you have more than, I believe it is, if you have like 20 episodes even, you are already in the top 1%, because many never go beyond 10 episodes.
mhm,
And you're already, and I'm almost at 120. So
mhm,
already you've separated yourself from some others. Even if it isn't monetized, it still lends a lot of credibility. So
yes, absolutely. And so it's a really good idea to do. I'm not suggesting that you shouldn't. Obviously, I have two podcasts and am working on a book. I've written the equivalent of about five, but they're in all different kinds of programs and formats. Um, and uh, and when you're first starting out in business, focus on sales, not credibility. Focus on delivering your products and services and finding out what problem you really do solve, not creating influence. Focus on building your list and who knows you, but also who you know that you can reach out to so that you can get revenue flowing, not building a profile or a brand. That comes later. Once you've got your cash flow in place, then you can take on projects like this. Otherwise, they could put you under because
yeah.
they take time and they take focus and they take money. So make sure that they are a good thing to do, but do it at the right stage. That's my typical rant about most entrepreneurial things is people are doing things that are ahead of the stage that they're at, and so they struggle and spin. It's not that it's not a good thing to do, it's just maybe not the right thing for them or at the stage that they're at. So um, I was going to ask you, because you mentioned making decisions. Let's talk about trusting your gut and how you make decisions using your gut. How do you know it's your gut versus your your knowing or your neuroses or your insecurity? How do you know which answer you should trust?
Well, there's a few filters you can run it through, but one of the most helpful I've found is, would I love this? Does this light me up? How does this feel? Just sit with it for a little while and am I even feeling it somewhere in my body? And does it feel expansive or does it feel a little bit contracted? Like it can feel scary. That's not a bad thing. Because if we just stay in a comfort zone, we aren't going to ever feel that little bit of scary. But is it a thing that, if I can see past all my paradigms of, conditional thinking, like I can only see as far as the failure or the wall that I might run into if I try this, or can I see past that and how would it feel if it all worked out instead of, oh my God, this could happen, this could happen, this could happen. We're really good at that and talking ourselves out of it. And that is a natural protection system that's built into us is to raise those flags and go, you know, this could happen. So we need to protect you from this deviation in what's happening right now in your life. But if you think, okay, but what if it all worked out and this worked? Go as far as you can see, and then the next part of the path will reveal itself, and just it'll feel right. It'll feel like freedom. So that's kind of goes back to that choose what feels like freedom. And it can be as simple as you get invited to something, somebody's having a barbecue, and just listen to yourself. Okay, if I said yes, how would that feel? If I said no, how would that feel? Okay. Whew. I
So
know.
so what do you do when, because I have this experience at times where I the voice of shoulds and justification and rationalization and so forth is so loud, it's hard to hear that quieter voice of
Right.
what do I want. So what are some techniques that you use to a differentiate them, but b move that aside more so that you can listen to it?
Well, I've recently learned this little phrasing from my who I'm coaching with right now, Stacy Berger, and that is to just go, "Excuse me, counsel, whatever you want to use in there. Excuse me, I interrupt this broadcast to say it's okay, like let's just hear this out." So that negotiating again and just and acknowledging, a part of me is a little afraid, a part of me is a little concerned. It's not all of me, it's not my whole identity. It's a part of me has these concerns, and thank you, acknowledge that you're trying to protect me, but I do think this is something that could really enhance my life or could be a success. I'd really like to learn this, whatever it might be.
Okay.
And instead of just trying to stomp it out and crush it and quiet it permanently,
Mhm.
that it's better to work alongside and say, I acknowledge you. Thank you. I appreciate that you're here trying to protect me. You're just doing your job, but
But no.
but no. Yeah.
Thank Thank you, but
Yeah.
no thank you.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I think that's great to kind of befriend it, to not just say, just talk to the hand, but to really understand with some real true compassion. It is trying to serve us. It's just a need that's trying to be met, a need for safety or a need for validation or a need for being loved or whatever. It's just trying to get met in some hinky ways. So how do we
Hmm.
still get it met, but do it in a way that's productive for us? So, why are you such a big advocate of trusting your gut for success? Why do you think that's so much more valuable than using your head to figure things out, or listening to other people or whatever the case may be?
Well, I can back this up as well with some reading that I've done. Malcolm Gladwell is one author, and Gavin de Becker another author. So I'll share a tiny bit about where that comes to reinforce my feeling. It is a very powerful voice, and this is something Stacy Berger, my coach, has also recently emphasized for us as well. Is our longings and discontent
Mm,
are a voice, a message from our higher self or universe, God, power, whatever you want to say, when you have those longings and discontents and you're curious to explore how you can reach those, like the goals, the vision for your life, and make changes and go through transitions, if we ignore that, we're going to miss it. And one of the biggest things we hear is, how will you feel at the end of your life if you don't try this? Regret is far more about what people have missed or not done than what they did do.
Yeah.
And so to get curious and start noticing a longing or a discontent, or if we notice someone else has been successful, your audience being maturepreneurs, and they're like, well, that person's so much further ahead of me and I'm too old to start now. Instead, reframe that and say, if they can do it, I can do it. They're
Mhm.
proof that this is possible. Doesn't matter when they started. Age isn't a factor here.
Mhm.
And the instinct thing is just do it. If you feel that curiosity and that invite, trust those instincts. So, the thing that Malcolm Gladwell mentions in the book Blink is that it is proven, and he shows through that book over and over, that our very initial, we might not even be fully aware of that initial feeling we have when we hear something, we meet someone, we see something. That is proven again and again, far more accurate than even well-educated or hours and years of research. And it comes back to that actually had been more accurate. So trust that. Don't miss opportunities because you say, well, that person wouldn't want to work with me. They wouldn't want my service. They wouldn't want to connect with me. I'm too old for this. You talk and then boom, 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 boom. We come all the way back down and we listen to that conditional thinking or those paradigms that are trying to protect us. We
Mhm.
overthink it, we overanalyze it, and we miss an opportunity to enhance our lives, or to, we are telling ourselves something. And back to Byron Katie, stop and go, wait, but is that true?
Mm.
Am I too old for this?
Yeah.
Is like, uh, how do I know that person wouldn't want to work with me or connect with me? And just trust that. And what Gavin de Becker tells in his book, The Gift of Fear, it talks about a different type of instinct where, uh, for example, woman's waiting for the elevator, door opens, there's a man in there, she hesitates, and a bunch of things run through her mind, and she goes, no, I'm just going to get in anyways. I'm going to ignore that instinct. And she gets in, and she's probably fine. But she has now put herself in a steel box, locked in a steel box with a stranger that she already feels uncomfortable with.
Mm.
We go through our lives, whether people go, oh, don't worry about it, or, we have outside voices, but we also have inside voices saying, don't make a stink about it. Don't, you know, that you're overthinking it. We downplay our instincts in many, many ways. And so it takes practice to listen to them and trust ourselves to it. Just try it. So some people say, what's the worst that can happen? I like to say, what's the best that could happen? It could all work out
I love
just
that
as likely.
optimistic thinking and framing again. What's the best that could happen? It's a much more empowering question. Our if you're driving through the mountains in a car and you look over the edge, where does the car go? It follows your attention. And so, likewise, what's the worst that can happen will likely lead you to focus on the worst and manifesting and creating that. So, what's the best that can happen is a great question. And I think great questions are far more powerful than even very wise answers. So thank you for that. And I love, in fact, it was a writer downer. And folks, if you didn't write it down, I encourage you to. Longing and discontent. There was quite a few that Deena said along the way here, but our longing and discontent is a message from the universe for us, or from God, or from your higher self, or whatever, Fred the teapot, whatever it is that floats your boat, to that message, and follow the longing. One of the things that came to me in a meditation a long time ago was to follow the longing and follow the thread, which was the thread of longing, to the hole in their soul. So follow the thread of longing to the HOLE,
Yeah.
through the other side, the WHOLE, in their soul, and that was the work that I was to do. And following the longing, listening for the longing, is one of the things that is one of my stupid human tricks. And so it's a It's a really wonderful thing to listen for longing. It lets us know what's at our core. What is that real elemental need that we want? What is that true desire, not the, built-in desires? Um, and it also helps to um, making that quick decision helps to overcome analysis paralysis because that
Yes.
it takes more people out of the game than almost anything else is overthinking, over planning, over needing to be certain when there really is no certainty in anything. Just go do it.
Well,
So
indecision is a decision.
yes, absolutely. And it's Les Deena said, what's the worst that can happen? You get information, and that is actually the best thing for you, the best thing that will help you with that next step. So beautiful. How do people connect with you, Deena? How do they find out more about you? And do you have a gift for us?
I do have a gift. I have put a little condensed introduction to the mindset of manifesting that is a piece of a couple of the books that I've written. And it's more around what we've talked about today. I would love people to connect with me because I love connecting and I I connect others all the time.
Mhm.
They can message me on social media, DM me, they can email. I have two different websites. I have deenakort.com. So court, it sounds like the court of law, but it's KORDT. And I would love to hear from people. And there's also divorcemagazinecanada.com. So there's a variety of ways that you can find me.
Beautiful. And where can they go and find your podcast?
Ooh, Life Changes Channel podcast. It's on all the players,
Okay.
Spotify, Apple, everywhere.
All right, Life Changes Channel podcast, which will give you some great interviews and insights into how to make your next sleep with more confidence and more conviction, perhaps, and some practical tips and expertise on how to do that. Deena, I really love your kind of very grounded, gentle kickassery. Like you've got a real element of just get off it and go do it, and a real compassionate heart that just holds space for people to um, be and have their best. I love that energy that you bring to things. So ladies and gentlemen, go to her websites, and or we'll put the link in the show notes for the giveaway, which is there's an ebook, Make It Happen, a personal introduction to manifesting guidebook, as well as some other goodies there for you. So we'll put that in the show notes. Please do go and get that information, connect with Deena, and figure out what your next step is for you in terms of if you were going to trust your gut, if you were going to listen to that longing and that discontent, what's it calling you to? Because that's something you deserve to step into. And part of what I love doing is supporting you in doing that. So the Maturepreneur Network is an incredibly huge value for very little money. It's only $50 for the first 50, so you better hurry up. To for $50 a month to connect with a community of people who are a hashtag not done by a long shot, who are getting expert speakers and networking and group coaching and accountability and goal setting and masterminding, a tremendous amount of support for you to make that next leap, or to get going or to keep going. If you've been in business for a while, losing a little enthusiasm, maybe disconnected from that sense of passion and purpose, come and join us and get re-inspired. So please go to maturepreneur.world. That's mature and then PRENEUR.world, because we're creating a whole world for you, to find out more information. And please come and join us so that you can play a bigger game. So do connect with Deena and support resources like hers. As you heard her say, she's got coaches. I've got two coaches. People need people to support them in being able to see those things that are right on the
Yeah.
end of our nose that we can't see. We need them to, help us pull it back so that we can see who we really want to be in the world and the difference we want to make. So Deena, thank you so much for being here. Tell me, what's one last thing you'd like to leave everyone with when it comes to really trusting their gut for success?
I want to invite everybody to my new talk show with Carrie Hansen
Ah,
because it's called The Shift Happens Show.
okay, cool.
And in that, people can participate in this. Let's talk about the shifts and transitions that you are either considering or you're facing, or ones that you want to be able to create positive change in the world. So I would encourage people, even if they just start with this one thing today, is because I think we all struggle with celebrating where we are at this point in our lives, what we've done, what we've learned. If you want to do a list, what have I even learned in the last 6 months? But I came up against this. How do I celebrate? And I keep stopping my friends and my colleagues, and I say, whoa, whoa, great. Now, how are you celebrating you, or how are you taking care of you? And we've even lost touch with how we are celebrating ourselves. So write a list of things that you could do, super small or something bigger, that you could do to celebrate you. Because when you start to celebrate you and feel how strong and amazing and worthy you are, you're
Mm,
going to have the bravery to trust your instincts and to take those steps and just go for it.
mm.
And yeah, so I invite everybody to connect with me and let me know, share your celebrate me list or whatever. And yeah, we'll be on that talk show every 2 weeks and just talking about shift.
And where can they find that? How can they find the Shift Happen shows?
I can send you a link for that as well. So it's deenakordt.com/shift happens show, which will say what dates and links for that. But
Beautiful.
live on my Life Changes channel Facebook page, they
Okay.
will be able to see the replays and join us live.
Awesome. Beautiful. Thank you so much for being here today, Deena. And thank you for being such an encourager of moving forward, of just going for it and doing it with a connection to ourselves, to being really more deeply connected to our knowing, to trusting ourselves, and coming back home to who we
Aw.
really are. Thank you for being that.
Thank you, Jeanette. Oh, I loved it. We could go on forever, I feel like.
I know I've got more
Thank
questions. I
you.
wrote them down, but you have to pack it in at some point. So
Yes.
everybody have a bodacious week. Please do check out Deena's shows, join the network, get support, create in a community that gets you, loves you, and supports you and cheers you on. Get support, however that looks, so that you can be the difference that only you can be in the world. Bye for now, everybody. Thank you for listening. I'd love it if you left a comment and subscribed. And I encourage you to apply one aha from this interview right away so you can turn your wisdom into wealth and your contribution into positive change. Bye for now.